In the Company of Charity is a podcast by the Daughters of Charity of St. Vincent de Paul. Each episode will be discussing the church, society, and service to others, all through the lens of the spirit we received from St. Vincent de Paul, the Saint of Charity. Join in the conversation by sending your comments and questions to companyofcharity@gmail.com. So welcome to the Company of Charity. This is Sister Elizabeth, and I'm here with Sister Liz Sjoberg.
Hey.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Liz.
Good to see you too. Yes. Happy to be here.
So you did a great interview with Linnea Ryer. Linnea was a Vincentian Mission Corps volunteer for a year, but we are not going to talk so much about that as we are about what Linnea does in her day-to-day life in Buffalo?
Yes.
Is that right?
Her post-volunteer life as it is today.
Is very, very interesting. Do you want to tell our listeners what she does?
Linnea works for an organ procurement organization that is whose job it is to find and seek out people who are willing to donate their organs. I
was absolutely fascinated by this interview. I remember when you first told me that you were going to be doing this, I thought, how exactly is this going to work? What is this going to be like? But it is really fascinating, and she is just filled with hope, this woman.
Yeah.
And just as she speaks about her work, the sensitivity to family members and those who need organs, those families that because a loved one has passed on or is considering donating their organs. Just absolutely fascinating. And
potentially the most awkward scenario for a lot of families.
Yeah. And yet, she spoke so eloquently about it. I can't wait for people to hear it and just to really consider organ donation. I mean, I'm an organ donor. I have it on my thing that I'm, willing to donate my organs, and God forbid if I ever needed one, I would hope that I would meet up with someone like Linnea to help me through that process.
I want to see if I can donate my body to science. I know that there are sisters who've done that.
Yeah. Well, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. It'd be quite scientific, I guess.
You know that you can, depending on your state, I mean, you can prepare your own document, and there are just ways to make sure what you want to happen with your organs can happen.
Yes.
And they can go to the people that need them. And the resurrection of the dead, I mean, Jesus has to just figure it out.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can see this is as awkward in this introduction as it was when we first started thinking about this episode. But as I said, it's an eloquent episode. You two really brought home just the life-giving quality, not to make light of it, but seriously, the fact that people's lives are absolutely changed by the work that she does. And that was, for me, the real turnaround in understanding, organ donation. And somebody's got to work this out, right? Somebody's got to do the organizing of all this and make it happen. And she's one of those people. And realizing she's in Buffalo, she's very close to me, I'm in Utica still. And so she's only 3 hours away. So I don't, know that I'll be getting out to Buffalo, but I may want to meet this lady sometime. Yeah. I really enjoyed the episode.
Thank you to Linnea, and thank you to the people who are willing to do this kind of work.
Yes.
That is extremely sensitive and really a challenge. Not everybody can be a first responder or, a doctor, or where you're with people at their most vulnerable.
Yeah, and I'd love to have her come back and talk about her experience, too, with the Vincentian Mission Corps, because I'd love to hear how she sees those things kind of combining together, the charism of St. Vincent, seeing the incarnational person, Jesus incarnated in us is... it would be fascinating to see just the respect for the body, respect for the human person would be really interesting to see how those two dovetail for her together.
You can hear the Vincentian spirit. She absolutely has it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's get on with the interview.
Awesome. Enjoy it.
Welcome, everybody. It's Sister Liz here. I am with a good friend, Linnea Ryer. She is a former Vincentian Mission Corps volunteer, and she's going to tell us a little bit about what she does with organ donation, which is, I'm super stoked to hear about this because it's a topic that most people, I'm guessing, really, really don't know about it. So welcome, Linnea.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here and kind of just share a little information about what I do and kind of have some conversation about, how organ donation impacts people and how it can, really benefit others, and just share some education about it and answer any questions that you have. So thanks for having me.
That's awesome. Before we get into all that, please tell the listeners a little bit about your experience as a VMC volunteer and why young adults should do that.
Okay, of course. I loved my VMC volunteer year. I knew probably for several years prior to graduating college that I wanted to do some sort of service. And I had looked at a few different programs, and VMC was just kind of the one that fit with my schedule and the timing. So it was my first time ever moving away from home, which was definitely a different experience, but I would suggest it to anyone who's even remotely thinking about doing some sort of volunteer work. I worked at the St. Louis Crisis Nursery, so they are an emergency care facility for families who are going through any number of different struggles, whether it's homelessness, financial issues, hospitalizations, domestic violence. They provide a safe haven for children for 3 or 4 days. It's very acute care. And they stay overnight there. And then while the children are in that safe space, we pair up the parents or the guardians with a caseworker, some kind of guidance that allows them to help them work through the issues that they're going through and take those next steps to get themselves in a better spot. And so it's a really beautiful ministry. It was something that I still hold really close to my heart. I had a really great experience. And then just living in St. Louis and being part of the community aspect of a volunteer, it was great as well. So I definitely recommend it to anyone who is thinking about it.
We loved having you guys there and your crew.
Yeah, we were pretty great. We were a pretty fun bunch, I would say.
I loved their list of things that they had to accomplish before they left St. Louis. Obviously, the Arch and other sundry Busch Stadium and all that. But,
yeah.
Seeing that getting checked off the list was fun.
Mm-hmm.
So let's dive in. I know that people often are a little maybe uncomfortable about talking about death and dying and the idea of organ donation. And as a social worker myself, I guess I would have never thought of that kind of work, being a family support specialist for your organization as an option for someone who's in the sort of social work field.
Yeah.
And so maybe just tell us a little bit about what the organization does and what is your role in it.
Okay, yeah, of course. So I work for Unyts. It's Upstate New York Transplant Services, and my role specifically is a family support specialist. So as an organization, we are the only OPO, Organ Procurement Organization in Western New York that deals strictly with organ, tissue, eye, and blood donation. And my role is to be kind of the support system for families who have the option to donate, whose loved one has the option to donate. So my role is kind of two parts. I work in one part with aftercare, so helping with correspondence between donor families and recipients, gathering information for donor families about their loved one, who they are able to help, where their recipients are located, kind of sharing how, unfortunately their loss has helped someone and give them, that sort of hope, that type of, perspective that, wow, I was able to, my loved one was able to help somebody, and this is a really great thing. And then the other part of my job is actually working in the hospitals. And so we work in all 26 hospitals in Western New York. And when I am walking into a hospital, my role is to be meeting with families to offer support for the loss that they're going through, see how I can help in any way, whether it's, being a liaison between them and medical staff, getting some clarification on what's, going on and what their options are, and then formally asking them if they would like their loved one to be a donor and give the life-saving gifts to other people.
Now, when these families are they identified, or do they self-identify to say, oh, my loved one was just in a terrible accident and I would like to talk about organ donation? Or is that something that you guys get these stats from the hospital?
So we work in conjunction with the hospital. So we have clinical donor coordinators that round every day in the hospitals, and we get referrals from the medical staff. So that's how we kind of get information on who could have this potential option. And then we have clinical triggers that would actually bring us into the hospital. So once an individual who is facing end of life hits those different clinical triggers, that's when we come in and start working with families and being their support system and just helping them through what they're going through.
So I'm imagining, as if I were in your place, I'm coming into a situation that's pretty dire, or perhaps even a sudden thing for the families. And is that awkward? You're like the weird lady that comes in and talks to them about organ donation. I mean, what is that like for you as a human to come in and be in that experience with people?
Yeah, it's definitely a unique position to be in. It's not a job that I even knew kind of existed until I started putting out, resumes and applications when I was moving back home. But, for me, when I get that call that there's a family in need and that needs my help and has this option, and you do get nervous at first. And I think if you didn't get nervous, that would be an issue. Because you are putting yourselves in this family's most vulnerable moment. And you have to tread very carefully, and you have to think of what's the best way that I can help this family, what can I do for them? And so what I really like about my position is that we're not just about, saving lives through organ donation. We're about helping other people. So sometimes, I'll spend 30, 40 minutes with a family, up to an hour, just providing them support, just, learning about their loved ones, seeing what they need, and not even bringing up the topic about donation, because that's not what's important right now. What's important is helping them and giving them the support and the emotional, kind of attention that they need, that they're not always getting. Because I find a lot in the hospital settings, it's a lot of people talking to the family and not giving them the space to talk to someone and really listen. And so that's, I think, what's so great about my job, is I really get to see how I'm helping people. And when we do get to the topic of donation and saving lives through organ donation, that's a different conversation that we have. You have to tread kind of carefully on when to bring it up, but it is, in my mind, if I'm giving these families the opportunity to kind of continue their loved one's legacy, and I think that's a really great gift.
I saw the post that you posted about the video with the recipient, I guess it was the donor's mom, and
yes,
they got the heartbeat of the recipient.
Yes.
Could you just explain it? We'll probably put a link to it, but I just think that's a beautiful, beautiful story.
It's an incredible story, and what is really nice is, my coworker and the other family support specialist out in Boston were really the legs and arms of this movement, and the donor's father as well. It was his original idea to give this gift to his wife. And that was actually the first family that I had encountered in a hospital. It was probably my second week in orientation. And so I didn't meet with the family. I didn't, speak with them. I was kind of just taking a backseat and observing, getting, the information that I could. But I got to watch this unfold literally every day in my office when I was working with my coworker. And that family was having, a particularly hard time. And so to see the overwhelming emotion of this mother and this father, like physically being able to see that their daughter's heartbeat was living on in another person and making that person live a healthy and beautiful life. that's something that really makes my job, really reminds me why I do what I do. Because that's our goal, is to really help others and give them that, give them that sense that, that she mattered and she's helping somebody else. So it was crazy, and it happened so fast. It was we got the call at the beginning of one week, and I want to say like mid time next week, it was all kind of coming into play. And so we were all super excited for this family, and we're really, as an organization, so happy that we were able to give them that gift.
Really, really cool.
Mm-hmm. And I would definitely say we shared the link. So if you ever, if you want to see this video, definitely take a look on it. It's on the Unyts Facebook page, and it's really a beautiful moment. So
now, I would imagine that people who have a unique job such as this, first responders, EMTs, firemen, folks who see people at their most vulnerable, most sensitive times, maybe they don't get the support that they need to help process those experiences that they themselves are having. As social workers, we talk a lot about secondary trauma and self-care and, vicarious trauma, where people really struggle with the things that they've seen or walked people through. And so how do you, as a person of faith, as a social worker, how do you come to understand and process those experiences that you have?
That's a really good question. I think it's all I think about remembering like why you're doing what you're doing. So, you're completely right, and that first responders, they see a lot of things that can stick with them. And being in the hospitals, it's very similar, especially for myself and also the medical staff too. We're exposing ourselves to very vulnerable moments. And I think when you ask about how we manage it and how we kind of process it, I think it's all about remembering that the work that we're doing is hard. And I would be lying to say that my job's easy, because it's not. But it's when at the end of the day, when you come home from a long day, knowing that you're even able to help someone just a little bit, give them some sort of peace, give them some sort of comfort, give them some sort of answer. That's what really, really gets me through it. And just having an amazing support team at my agency. I don't think I've ever worked with a more supportive and collective staff. And I feel really blessed to have that. Our managers, our other coworkers, everyone we work with is understanding of that our job's hard and that we need to rely on each other for support, and be kind of, a shoulder for everyone and really hold each other up during those hard moments. So those are what really get me through it.
Yeah. And I think, you spent a year kind of in that Vincentian spirituality of, how we see Christ in those we serve. What is it doing to transform our own situations, not just theirs, but to deepen our own sense of self and unity and connection with the world. That is really important, because we have hard jobs. We see things that a lot of people just can't even handle. And that is a very, very sacred gift. And it speaks a lot to your strength and your foundations that you're able to be a support to people when maybe not everybody can do that kind of job.
I definitely think that my Vincentian spirituality helps me a lot in what I do. I spent a year learning about St. Vincent and St. Louise and how they were just immersing themselves in people who were hurting and who needed their direct support. And that is, that's a direct reflection of what I do, on a daily basis and what I've done my entire life. I just have, I've always had this need to help people. And so I think it's a really unique thing to be able to go to work every day and know that I'm, incorporating my spirituality into my work and being able to see the results of it in, like real time.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that we need God.
Yes, it definitely is.
We can't do it without it. Now, obviously you have a very unique position, and people really, a lot of people don't like thinking about this topic necessarily for themselves or their family members. So what would you recommend for people who are listening who want to learn more, or who maybe feel a little weird about advanced directives or looking into organ donation? What would you recommend to folks?
I think what I would say is definitely get some information. Don't be afraid to look. So what's really unique about, organ donation is each state has their own OPO. It's called an Organ Procurement Organization. So Unyts is, Western New York's, agency. And so they are responsible for, making all of this happen and, making those life-saving gifts, come into vision. But they're also have endless amounts of information about, the tissue donation and blood donation, organ donation. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions from, news and TV that kind of gets people a little nervous. And so I would say definitely educate yourself. Every website has information about donation, how it happens, all those little mini questions that you might have. And that's kind of my role as in the hospital as well, as I come to families who don't really know, who may just not know about donation, and they may have some misconceptions with it, which is normal and it's totally okay. And so I love being able to clarify and answer anything that they can. So I would say the first step is to definitely, you can just go online and Google, organ donation in, New York and California, wherever you are. And it'll bring up almost immediately the agency that is responsible in your state and in your area. And that's a great first start. You can also call the agencies directly. They always have someone who is kind of in my role or similar to my role to answer those types of questions. And they're more than willing to talk with you and give you all the information you need. And I think the third thing that I would say is that if you're a person who likes to help people, if you're a person who, just gets the joy and the peace from knowing that you're able to make someone's day a little bit different, I would say, sign up. You can register yourself at the DMV when you're renewing your license. You can go online and register through your state's website. And it's a really, I think, beautiful gift, and it can be scary to think about it. But I mean, I'm an organ donor myself. It's on my license. It's on, I registered on the website because I know I like helping people. And, at the end of the day, I think, I may not be here physically on this earth forever, but I can help someone continue their life on this earth. And I think that if I can do that, then why not? So I guess that's kind of my 2 cents about it.
I love it. You're very, you make it sound so beautiful. And it's making something beautiful out of, at times, a very tragic and sorrowful situation.
Yeah. And I think what makes a lot of people apprehensive is because it's not, it is not common knowledge, and, a lot of people get nervous that it might, cause them to not look the same, when their family is going to bury them or proceed with arrangements. And what I really like to say to families who have those concerns is that donation does not affect any appearance to the body at all. And so when you have families that are really concerned, or individuals that are concerned, well, no, I want to stay, whole. I want to be, presentable and be able to give my family that final sense of peace. We have, and every organization has, the utmost respect for people who choose to give the gift of life. And I am getting a bit emotional because I'm so passionate about it. And we treat them just as they were one of my family members, just if they were my sister, my brother, my dad, my aunt, my uncle, whoever they would be, because they're giving the ultimate gift, and that is something that's really beautiful. And so I love, being able to give families and individuals that sense of peace that we are never going to do anything that would, take that respect away from you. Or from your family, because they are giving the most beautiful gifts that they can. And so I think that's something that I come into a lot, is people are nervous. I want to stay the way that I look, So
that's really, and I think that's a great ending note for this time that we've had together, because you've put it so eloquently about how sacred the work is that you do, and I'm glad that we put it out there for everybody to learn more, because it's not easy. And we're recording this around Christmas time, and sometimes Christmas time can be not as joyful for a lot of reasons for people.
yeah.
So gosh, it's a total resurrection narrative right there. Things die and pass away, but there you are, and like God is making something beautiful and new life out of it. Yeah,
Definitely.
So Linnea, thank you. Thank you so much for this time. And
yeah, I'm so thankful that we were able to, get together and, share information about this topic and my experience with it, and how, it reflects my year of service. I'm super appreciative of it. So thank you.
Oh, awesome. All right, Linnea. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. We'll talk soon.
Okay.
Bye.
And now it's time for your Vincentian Pulse.
The year is 1660. It's March 13th. St. Louise de Marillac, the faithful and inspiring co-founder of the Daughters of Charity, is gravely ill and dying. The young sisters and those who have been with her for the last 27 years find themselves in this experience of losing the one who has guided them through example, through her words, through her letters for 27 years. And she's about to leave them. And the question, I think, for them, and even for us so many, many years later, is what was the legacy of St. Louise? What did she leave us as a community? What has she left us as a church? And I think that it's in her last testament, when we think about, I guess maybe we don't always think about, what will we leave behind? What will be our legacy? What will be the words, the example that we will leave behind, that others can continue to find support or comfort or faith in? And St. Louise, she loved the sisters. And in her last words to them were their final instructions, the final blueprint of how they were to live their lives, the legacy that she left for each of us as Daughters of Charity, and I think for all those who want to be good, faithful servants of the Lord. And what she said to them was, she said, "My dear sisters, I continue to ask God for his blessings for you, and pray that he will grant you the grace to persevere in your vocation in order to serve him in the manner he leads you. Take good care of the service of the poor, and above all, live together in great union and cordiality, loving one another in imitation of the union and life of our Lord. Pray earnestly to the Blessed Virgin that she may be your only mother." If we look at this last will and testament of St. Louise to her sisters, to us, future Daughters of Charity, those she would never know, but those she knew were coming, and what she leaves, I think, for the church, are very simple messages. One, she says, "I pray that he will grant you the grace, that God will grant you the grace to persevere in your vocation, whatever that vocation might be, in order to serve him in the manner he asks of you, to do as God asks. Take good care of the service of the poor. Reach out, love, care for those who maybe find themselves unloved, unlovable, those who find themselves on the fringe. Go to them and take good care of them and be of good service. And above all," she says, "live together in great union and cordiality. Love one another in imitation of the union of our Lord." Love one another. Be good to one another. Be in union with one another, because it is in our community and it is in our connectedness to one another that we will find the strength to do the others, to follow our vocation, to do as God wishes, to love the poor even when it's very difficult to do it. We can't do any of this alone, and Louise knew that. And that was part of the legacy she handed on to the sisters. And I think what's most important, it brings us almost back to the very beginning. She says, pray earnestly to the Blessed Virgin that she may be your only mother. Louise is leaving these young women, these sisters who have been with her for just 20 years, not really a very long time. And she says to them, Our Lady, Blessed Mother, is your mother. Look to her. And it brings us back to the beginning, because she is the example of the one who did as the Lord asked. She is the one who took care of the poor. She is the one who was there to bring union and love among the apostles and the young church at the death of her son. She's the example. Mary is the legacy that Louise leaves us with, to follow in her footsteps, loving the Lord, loving the poor, doing as the Lord asks of us, and being good and loving to one another. So let's follow that legacy. Let's follow that call of St. Louise, those last words that she's left with us, to love the Lord through the poor, to love him through the lives that we live, and to love him in all the ways in which we follow in his footsteps.
This has been In the Company of Charity podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.